Hey Waffle Gang, I do hope you're well. My name is Mark and today we're checking out some more Reddit stories, and if you do love a Reddit story, why not consider hitting that like, subscribe, maybe that notification bell too. And let's crack on with today's first story. Much love, guys. Now, before we do get into today's first story, I just want to give you a warning that there is talk of eating disorders within the story, so if you do want to skip it, please feel free to do so. Timestamps are always in the description and along the timeline below. Thank you. And this is from the True Off My Chest subreddit from a throwaway account that says, I'm married and I tested positive for an STI. Both my husband and I were virgins when we met and we're in a monogamous relationship. We just celebrated 4 years together. None of this makes sense. Truthfully, I don't believe he cheated. I know I probably sound like I'm in denial, but even my doctor seemed confused at the test result. A month ago, I had an IUD inserted. Had issues arise from it, so we decided to get it removed. Because of these issues, we didn't really have sex. We did a 1 to 2 times with a condom in the week after the IUD was inserted, and once without a condom the night or two before my IUD was removed. At the time of removal, I mentioned I thought it might have an infection like BV and was checked for it. Here's the thing, when I got the IUD in, I tested negative for any infections or STIs in general. Now, when the IUD was removed, I tested positive for BV and an STI known as Mycoplasma genitalium when he was sent the swabs or samples or whatever you call it off to the lab. So I would have to have contracted it during the time between me getting my IUD inserted and before its removal. Thing is, that doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense for my husband to have cheated at all. I can't even imagine that possibility realistically, but also logistically. He's been with me unless he was at work. We live 10 to 15 minutes away from his job and he leaves 20 minutes before work, which gives him enough time to park, walk to his unit and clock in. He arrives home on time every night and in uniform, leaving straight from work to home. I see his schedule and his pay stubs. I know those are the hours he's working. He gets paid one break where I bring him food or coffee or we chat through text the whole time essentially. Other than going to work, he's been home. Anytime we went out together. There's literally no time he could have even cheated if he did. The only other times he's been alone was to pick up a curbside grocery order about 10 minutes away, 10 minutes back, and he was back home within 25 to 30 minutes, or when he picked up one of our 2 children from a relative's house and went straight there and straight back. My doctor said he's sending another sample to the lab for testing and I get the results back in a few days. I was a bit caught off guard in the clinic and I did cry, but as I said, even my doctor said he didn't believe the results at first and wanted to run them again in case I tested negative at the IUD insertion. They just needed a new sample to test again since they couldn't reuse the one they had. I told him it has to be a mistake, it literally doesn't make sense. When I got home, I was crying and my husband seemed concerned for me and asked what the doctor said. He just knew I got a call to come in about some results. I was struggling to find the words and was just crying and hesitating before I could speak when he hugged me and held me tight and asked what happened. That was actually when I was able to spit it out. I wanted his comfort so bad, but couldn't stand it if he was a cheater. I said, please be completely honest with me. Did you cheat? He wasn't defensive. He wasn't angry. He didn't even hesitate. He just looked me square in the eye and said so confidently, no, I've never cheated. I told him about the STI result. He repeated that he didn't cheat as we talked more. He seemed genuinely confused. It's like he went through all the emotions I did when I got the news. He offered up his phone and said he has nothing to hide. He wanted to get tested right away to prove he didn't spread it to me and reassured me he didn't cheat. He even gave me his phone for me to share our locations with each other. I told him to wait for the next results before getting tested because I'm sure I'm just one of those rare cases of a false positive. He didn't seem angry at me for asking. He was actually really confused as to how I could have gotten it, and it was literally us trying to give theories as to how I got a false positive for hours, but all of them felt like a stretch. We discussed the possibility of a false positive. We discussed how there must be a mistake. My doctor said it can only be contracted through sex, a swap sample or something. My husband works healthcare and knows that try as they might to prevent accidents happening, Mistakes from human errors are a thing. We keep telling ourselves it has to be some kind of human error. I know he didn't cheat. He couldn't have. I know I didn't cheat. Even he knows that, with both of us pointing out we've been together except when he's working. I know he couldn't have cheated. It doesn't make sense. None of this makes sense. I know people in love still cheat, but we literally haven't had any problems in our relationship. We very much love each other. I can't see him hurting me like this. I just don't know what to think. It all feels so unreal. We're both really confused and I feel at a loss for how to go from here. What happens if I get another positive result? What happens if I don't? What's scary is thinking I'll get a positive but I have no clue how it got there. Especially if he tests negative, because truthfully, I can't even see logistically how he could have cheated when he's been home with me except for work. None of this makes sense. So, Lazuli Rose calls out OP straight away in the comments and says, it may be a false positive, but it really seems like you're trying too hard to convince yourself that he didn't cheat. Combine that with the fact that you deleted a story about your husband and W, and it's sketchy. The OP replies to that and says, I didn't delete it. It was removed for breaking Am I the Arsehole rules. The story about my husband and W isn't really about them. Essentially what happened was, husband and I went to a bar before a Halloween party. I was pregnant with our baby and designated driving for them. When we got there, a bartender was very clearly flirting with my husband and saying things like, you got a nice ass, and being rude to me. He kept making it clear he was married and uninterested, and she kept harassing him. Literally, she would wait for me to go to the restroom before making sexual comments about his body and flirting. Because she made most of them when I was gone in the restroom or sitting down at the table, it was a small town bar and a grill type of place. I didn't know how far it went. I thought it was one comment where he gave an awkward thanks and made it clear he was married to me and uninterested. I didn't realize how far it went until the next morning when my husband told me he was pretty drunk at the bar, and I told W about it, who was a mutual friend of ours but mostly mine. I was just ranting about it. I also talked about it in a private page with close family and friends that W was in, which it was mostly people commenting on similar experiences and how to handle it. My husband was aware of me speaking about it with them. Well, W wasn't the most mentally stable at the time, and she had a breakdown where she decided to burn bridges with everyone and everything, and did this to me by taking screenshots of us talking about the incident out of context and sent it to the bartender. Like she went out of her way to find their info, and said I'm planning to assault her and I'm a threat to the bar, the staff, the bar owner, and the owner's family. W and my husband never had any kind of feelings for one another, nor did anything go down between them. My husband was 100% on my side and stopped being friends with W as well after this. He actually comforted me and still does when I cry about this, because despite what she did, I love W like a sister, and I do worry about her since she's spiraled further since the incident. I had one conversation with her where he kind of mediated things between us to where we could have a conversation in which she apologized. I explained I felt more comfortable not being friends anymore. The only other conversation was a few months after that, where I was temporarily hospitalized to monitor baby when pregnant, and she asked if I was okay. She heard about it, and he let her know I was okay. He showed me these messages, and they haven't spoken since, in about a year after that last conversation. Montana Blue says to OP, wait for your second set of results, talk to another doctor. I'm inclined to believe he is innocent based on his calm reaction. Wanting to get tested right away and show you his phone are the reaction of an innocent person. OP says that's what I thought too. He wasn't defensive at all. My doctor said that the test is extremely accurate, but there is a chance that it's false. I think he even took 2 samples to send off to be sure, because I heard him ask for another swab from the nurse and he mentioned it going through quality control. They also took my urine to test. I told my husband if this is positive too, I'll go to another clinic to have a different test done, but this has thrown us for a loop for sure. Another commenter says, I tested positive for syphilis. Had an entire breakdown because I used condoms and got it tested religiously. Full regime of antibiotics, crying on the phone for hours, whole 9 yards. False positive. Cute lab nerd replies that saying, yep, lab person here. And I always say no test is perfect. Having tested repeated, asking for removal of the cost of repeating testing. Also, this is not an organism normally tested for, which I find interesting. OP does come in with an update and says to start, I want to address the overwhelming response I got. I did not expect so many people to see this, but I want to thank each and every one of you who commented. Well, everyone except that one dude who gave off incel vibes and said some less than savory things, you suck. Everyone else, thank you. I was really moved by the large amount of people sharing stories of a false positive. Everywhere else I looked, I heard about how they're so rare that it didn't really feel like an option. So thank you to those who shared, because it really gave me hope and helped hold me together whilst I was waiting for the results of the retest. I couldn't respond to every comment, but I read every one and want to address a common point made. For those who thought he could be cheating at work because he's in healthcare, that couldn't be further from the truth. For one, he regularly works with his family who are also in healthcare. Definitely no affair there, lol. And second, the thought of him with a non-relative staff actually made us giggle a little, considering they are mostly nurses who are twice his age and know and adore me and the kids. As for us, we both had a very long discussion about the situation. My husband maintained his innocence, and as stated in my original post, I believed him. We both agreed to continue on with our relationship as normal until the retest results came in. The only exception was we agreed no sex in case that I did have the STI. I believe I posted my original post on Thursday, but it was written on Wednesday, which was when I got the positive results, which started this. I had just debated about posting. It had been a difficult time for me to say the least, and I went to some dark places mentally if I'm being honest. My husband is very affectionate and compassionate and has been doing his best to make the waiting as easy as possible for me and trying to help me in any way he could. Unfortunately for me, this whole experience just triggered me in a way I don't think anyone could have anticipated. I've long struggled with disordered eating and what my husband believes is anorexia, but I've never been formally diagnosed with, especially after having my baby. I've struggled with eating and this whole experience just amplified that for me. Though realistically, I knew my husband didn't cheat and he tells me every day how beautiful, loved and appreciated I am. I kept flipping between, my husband finds my body undesirable so he cheated, to, if he didn't give this to me, someone or something else did and my body feels violated because of this. I felt out of control of my own body and life, and as such, I stopped eating. I was already stressed and tired, so adding nausea from hunger made me especially pissy these past few days. My husband really did try to comfort me, and truthfully, him being there for me combined with so many positive comments really made me feel a lot better. So again, thank you. Today, when in therapy of all places discussing this whole situation, I got the call with the results for the retest. The nurse from the OBGYN's office called and sounded very apologetic, which I mistook for pity at first and felt so on edge waiting for her to spit it out. It was a false positive. My retest came back as negative, no mycoplasma genitalium. She said they were really happy they came back before the weekend and that we don't have to worry anymore. This has been such a huge relief for both my husband and I. He's at work right now and very eager to get back. This definitely was a stressful time for us both, but our marriage is strong and I feel like it will only be stronger after this. A couple of comments on this one says, I'm so glad it turned out to be a false positive. Now you need to recover from the stress of worrying about all the implications of it if it had been a true positive. Send in hugs if wanted. Hot Mess says, I stopped eating again this week myself, but onwards and upwards. You deserve to be nourished. Eat back into however you need to in order to assuage the nausea. You can get back on track. Just trust your own strength to persevere and don't give up. Remember, you can do hard things. Rooting for you. Opie says thank you. I'm trying to, and I'm hoping it'll be easier now that we know it's a false positive. I drank a coffee earlier after getting the news, and I'm making one of our favourite meals tonight to try and motivate myself to eat some of it. Environmental Art says, my suggestion, go out to dinner with a hubby to celebrate, but pick somewhere like Sushi Train or a buffet style where you can eat without worrying about a plate being too much or not enough. Just do lots of small picking plates and spend the time picking at your food while enjoying your husband's company. Regain control and make a positive eating environment. Congratulations on the good news. Wow, and it's incredibly sad that Opie's eating disorder was triggered by this situation, and I really hope that they get back on track as much as they can with that, of course. But fair play to both of them for dealing with it in the way that they did. I could just imagine so many stories that we've covered in the past, getting that positive for an STI in initially could absolutely destroy relationships. There's a top comment on this post that said, that was from that guy from Spy Kids 3D who says, My wife had a vaginal thrush reaction to a medication a doctor put her on. She thought she had herpes. The doctor, while swabbing, told her, "He cheated or you cheated. This is herpes," before testing was complete. Her results came back negative. We double tested to be sure. I was the one who found out about the vaginal thrush reaction because I googled her medications. We gave that doctor hell. Fucking hell, man. I just find that so scary that it's just immediately to he cheated, you cheated, no discussion of this whole false positive thing. Sure, it might be quite rare, but it clearly happens. That's madness. But now I'm going to turn this one to you guys. What do you guys make of this situation? Have you ever found yourself in a similar situation before? I know it's quite out there. Let us know your thoughts and let's move on to another story. And now we're going to turn to the Am I the Arsehole subreddit. The story doesn't have an update as yet. It's from Regular Rip 1082 and says, "Am I the arsehole for embarrassing my uncle by asking him to leave my wedding? I, 34 male, had my wedding yesterday with my wife, Lisa, 34 female. A lot of our relatives and friends attended, including my uncle, who's in his mid-80s. He's never cared about me since I was born, and has not checked in with me either. He was virtually non-existent throughout my life. Years ago, when we were homeless and required help, we reached out to him to lend us some money and help us to find another house. He's really rich and has a lot of connections, but he refused anything and never bothered to ask what had become of us either. I didn't want to invite him to my wedding, but my parents said I had to, and in the end, I did. He came along with his family, and before the wedding ceremony, he came to me and said congratulations, and then stated, 'Congratulations, I've also bought you an expensive present, unlike your loser of a father who couldn't give you much of anything.' I was shocked at that comment. He was just smiling at me, but I lost my temper and said I don't want anything from him. I yelled at him and asked him to fuck off from the wedding, etc. It resulted in a huge scene, and in the end, he had to leave, along with his family, who were also yelling at me. My other relatives present are saying that I reacted very badly, etc. I'm wondering whether I did the wrong thing now. Am I the arsehole?" Now this one, I gotta be honest, had me in two minds. Initially, when I first read it, I thought fucking fair play to you. He's a disrespectful arsehole, absolutely kick him out of the wedding. But then I was thinking about the whole wedding scenario, you know, people around, your wife there, etc. And do you want to cause a scene on this? That's, you know, might taint the day, maybe. I know this will probably be 50-50. Some people won't give a shit. Some people might even enjoy the drama, you know. I don't think you're the arsehole, of course, but I think, was there a better way to handle the situation? Maybe just whispering in his ear, maybe it's time for you to fuck off now after that comment. Or telling someone else, you know, get rid of this guy. He's got to go after that. I just think the whole sort of scene, if you like, of shouting and yell at him to fuck off out of the wedding, etc., etc. And you said yourself it caused a huge scene. Is that something you really wanted for yourself? Again, I know some people wouldn't really care about that. I know other people. I just know for myself, it'd probably be the best way to just, you know, just go up to him and say, "Look, didn't appreciate that comment. Now you fuck off, mate." Sort of like one-to-one kind of thing. But hey, you know how your family would react in that situation. You deal with it your own way. Who the fuck am I? Lizab says, "Not the arsehole. Your wedding, your rules. He disrespected your father, so he showed no respect to you. So buying an expensive present is a magical key to buy the right to say anything. Absolutely not. Being old, neither. You have the right to act that way. And I think people who support him in fact just hope being on his testimony." Comfortable C says, "Not the arsehole. Your wedding, your rules. Congratulations, I have also bought you an expensive present, unlike your loser of a father who could not give you much of anything." Commenter says, "I would have kicked him out too." RB1327 says, and quotes, "I yelled at him and asked him to fuck off from the wedding, etc. It resulted in a huge scene, and in the end, he had to leave, along with his family who were also yelling at me." And then says, "Everyone sucks here. Everyone sucks here. Making a scene like that at your own wedding is asshole behavior, to your bride and to everyone who had to witness it. Most of your guests have no idea what your history has been with this man, and they all saw you acting a fool. What a wonderful memory you created for your wife on this special day." / sarcasm. "Your uncle has been a lifelong arsehole to you. and nothing he said should have been any surprise. Blame yourself for caving into your parents' insistence that he be invited. Admirable Coffee says not the arsehole for kicking your uncle out, but yes, you did react badly. To be fair, your uncle's statement was worth a bad reaction. However, I think there could have been a better way to handle it than taking the attention of what's most important, you and your wife, and drastically changing the mood. Yelling at him may have made you feel better short term, but that was not the best in front of your guests right before the ceremony. That's not what you want people to remember or talk about from your wedding. Cheerleader Nav says, everyone sucks here. Your uncle was a prick, but your reaction of yelling and cursing is on you. And then quotes that bit about the huge scene again and says, this is what your groomsmen are for. The best thing would have been to tell your best man to escort your uncle and his family out and let them be the focal point of any drama that came from it. Unfortunately, a lot of the guests who aren't aware of your backstory you have with him at the wedding will only remember it as the one where the groom screamed at his uncle. And like I thought, there's going to be some back and forth on this one. Some people saying, absolutely not the arsehole. OP's within his right to tell his uncle to fuck off out of there, and that's what they would have done. Other people going down this everyone sucks here, making a scene at your own wedding, etc, etc. It's just one of those ones. What do you guys make of this situation? How would you have dealt with that if that was you? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. Oh, cheeky. And hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Take care and much love.
Yeah, man, I remember being so naive when life was good, weather and palm trees. Back in the day, you were everything I need. But then along came a time when you crushed my dreams. Oh yeah, you played me like a fool when you made me believe that the line between love wasn't thick enough to read. Oh yeah, you see we in despair, crime everywhere. You're selling false hope cause you just don't care. Nah, you just don't care. Nah, you just don't care. You just don't. Still selling false hope cause